Hey, this is Kat Lee.
And I'm Laura Wilkinson, and this is the Hello Goals podcast.
So, today we're going to be talking about why it's important to understand ourselves when we're setting goals. Because, Laura, I have sometimes come upon the new year and I'll think, oh, so and so is running a marathon. I think I should try that. And it's not a good idea because it doesn't fit my particular season or situation in life. And it's taken me many years, but I finally started to realize how important it is for me to know myself and to know what my boundaries are, know what my gifts are, know what my strengths are so that I can set goals that fit within that. And I'm curious to know if you have ever set a goal that didn't align with who you are or how you are.
Oh, yes. Anything involving running would be a really bad goal for me. I am not a cardiovascular athlete. I like those quick, explosive movements. But I remember being done with diving and I was trying to find, because it's hard for me when I'm not motivated to like win something because I'm super competitive. To just work out and be healthy. Like I don't understand that concept. That's hard for me. And I remember my husband was trying to help me. So he would sign us up for like duathlons where we're like running and biking. And that's not my love language. It's nothing that and I thought, oh, it doesn't matter. I'll get into it. And it was just like sheer torture. And I found out that there are much more fun ways for me to work out than that. So yes, knowing yourself and what you love. Not to say you can't do things that challenge you or you don't enjoy sometimes, and there can be fruit from that, but this was not one of those things.
Well, I'm curious to know. Well, I kind of want to press in on that because I feel like I talk to so many women who do want to exercise and stay healthy, and they have a hard time, they just go to running or they just go to the gym or whatever. So what was it that you found that works better for you than duathlons?
Well, in that season of life, we had like a local gym membership, and I would go, and they had like these kind of dance kickboxing classes. So it wasn't like I wasn't kicking a bag or anything like that, but it was like a fun workout kind of video, but you were with people. And so in that season, I needed the accountability. I needed to be like show up. I started to get to know people in the class because I was there all the time. And so that really helped me just show up, and it was fun. I danced a lot, like I did gymnastics. So there was always ballet or dance, and I did drill teams. So I enjoyed that a lot. So it was like dancing and working out, and you could put as much or as little effort into it as you wanted to. So I could be all in and actually get a fantastic workout, and it was fun. And so it didn't feel hard or heavy or any of that. And I was getting just as good of a workout. So now in this new season, this has been a bit more of a challenge because I feel like I'm always home with the kids. So trying to find something that I enjoy with them. But like we love bike rides. I make them take a walk with me, and we got to walk the dogs. So like we go walk to the park, and then they can play, and I can do stuff around there, stuff more around the house, which has been hard because again, I'm wired to go somewhere to do my workouts. It's going to the gym, going to the pool, going to the place. So working out at home, it's funny. There has always been a disconnect because that's not what I've done. So I'm slowly trying to incorporate that back. We've got a little area in our garage that's kind of set up to help with that. But again, I also have to understand that like I'm not training to be an elite athlete right now. I am just doing this to be healthy and be active with my kids. And so part of it, my checkpoint, I can say, can I keep up with my kids? Can I do what they're doing or what they want me to do? Can I jump on the trampoline with them? Or is my back going to go out? Like I've got to be in shape to do that. And so that's kind of my new motivating factor. Not that it's perfect, not in shape right now, like still trying to get there, but that's what kind of keeps me going at this moment.
I think that's so interesting because we're alike in a lot of ways. We have similar interests. We both love sports, kids, all that sort of stuff. I cannot do group fitness. I have no desire to be in a classroom with other people doing the same thing unless I'm competing against them.
Interesting.
And I'd never enjoyed going on runs with people or working out with people. Like my Taekwondo class is as group fitnessy as I can get. And my main motivation there is to spend time with my son. My favorite part of my Taekwondo class is when we spar. Just doing, what's the word, like
beating each other up.
Yeah, beating each other up as opposed to just doing things together. Like I don't know why, but it doesn't motivate me very much. And so I think it's so interesting how we can both be very competitive people, and yet one works for you that doesn't work for me. And I just think that's so important for so many of us to recognize because then when I was in college, people would be like, "You want to go on a run together?" I'm like, "Sure." And it would just, just be a little bit of a struggle. It wouldn't be my favorite thing. Or friends would say, "Hey, do you want to go do this yoga class together?" And I was like, "Sure," because I wanted to be with my friends and I wanted to be
Hmm.
with people. But something about that environment was just challenging for me. Maybe it's my own perfectionism of, oh, I'm not flexible. I can't do this yoga pose, or I don't know what it is. But then if you translate it to basketball or pickleball or something we're all kind of competing together and against one another, that works perfectly for me.
See, that's funny because I can't do team sports. Like that's
Ah,
not, I'm not wired that way. I remember being done with gymnastics and trying to find other sports. And I tried, one of them was softball. And I could not handle the fact that we weren't practicing enough and we weren't, because I was used to training in the
mm,
gym like 35 hours a week, as like a 13-year-old. And so going once a week and doing games, I was like, how are we ever supposed to be good at this? Like, this is ridiculous. And if somebody let the team down, I had a really hard time because I'm like, I put in all this effort. So I couldn't ever quite turn that dial. I struggled with team sports because I've just always been an individual athlete, but I think it's important to try those things, even if we don't know if we like it or we don't think we're wired. It's always good to try it to confirm whether that's your thing or not,
right,
right? Because you
right.
you won't really ever know until you try. Because you may find out that there's something like, oh, I don't like this group class thing with Taekwondo, but I love being here with my son and I love the sparring part of it. Like I
Mhm.
do enjoy this aspect of it. So it's always good to try stuff, knowing that this may not be my thing, but I should give it a shot.
And then as you do that, making notes of those things, whether you have to necessarily like write it down. I don't need to write down that I don't love group fitness. I know that in my soul. But, just as you're discovering these things, I think it's so important to remember because I don't know about you, but I have so often had a great realization or done something, like maybe even made a meal plan, and then just completely forgot about whatever that realization was or that meal plan that I made. And then I find it months, years later, and I was like, oh, that was a really great idea. Or that was a really great realization that
Hmm.
just got forgotten. And I think there's a lot of value in what I call keeping a personal inventory. Just as I recognize things about myself, I just have a note where I write it down. And it's not organized, it's not pretty, but it's just all these little things that I think they're important about me that I have recognized and that I know so that it can help me in my future decision making. So let's talk about goals, or whether that's as a mom, as a homeschooler, as a mental performance coach, whatever. What are some things that you've learned about yourself in any of those areas, really, that have helped you to make better decisions?
Well, what you're just touching on with like writing those things down. Like I was always a journaler growing up and it wasn't super consistent, but when I wrote so much. And sometimes that was my only outlet because I wasn't a super social person. I mean, I had my little group of friends, but like my outlet was just writing it all out. And that's how I processed things. And so I could look back and see what I went through and how I figured stuff out or how I didn't figure stuff out or what was helping me or what was hurting me. And so that's something like you were saying, take note of these things. I think it's really important because as you write things down and you're processing them, but you're also learning about yourself and what works for you and what doesn't. And you start to find patterns, of how things affect you or how you
Hmm.
can make quality changes. And so I think that's really important. And something as I talk to athletes, it's kind of, I mean, the biggest part of making any quality changes is you first have to know yourself, right? You first have to know what is going on in my mind. Why am I doing these things this way? What is, when this happens over here, how does that affect me over here? Like, we have to start to pay attention. And so I think that's something that I've learned and I try to teach others is you have to understand how you're reacting to things, what thoughts are going through your head before you can take them captive to start changing them and transforming yourself. Yeah.
That's so good. I have journaled on occasion, but I'm so curious. How do you go back and read your, like, do you have a process for going back and reading your old journals? Do you just randomly do it? Is it painful? Like, I feel like it's been painful for me to go back and read my journals, but I've had a heart to summarize the things that I've learned. I just don't exactly know what that looks like. So I'd love to hear
Mhm.
more about how you've done that.
Well, so kind of two different ways. So when I would look back at my old stuff, like back in the day, it was more when I was struggling. And I would look back and say, well, what was going on? Because I remember I wrote something down when this happened, and I could sometimes see how I worked through it, or what my coach said to me that actually helped, or something like that, or things that were ringing true to me at the time. Now, what I actually made a journal called the Confidence Journal that helps athletes, because not everybody loves to write, and not everybody wants to write massive amounts of like deep emotional things out on paper, but like just nailing bullet points to help you see like what were my priorities that day or that week or going into that competition? Like what was I aiming for? What was my thought process? How did I operate at the end of it? And if we're capturing those on like our highest days and our lowest days and that's it, we'll start to find those patterns. And that's a lot easier to flip back through when you've just got some main bullet points there to
Yeah.
kind of see those patterns and learn more about yourself without like expending all the energy or having to do it every single day. And it just starts to feel like torture, you know?
I love that. Bullet points. Yes. I feel like sometimes when I start journaling, I feel as though I need to write eloquently or for posterity. My children will read this someday. I know I've heard about a thing called morning pages. Have you heard of morning
No,
pages?
tell me about it.
I think it's from a book called The Artist Way. Perhaps the author's name is Julia Cameron, but it's just the idea that you wake up in the morning and the first thing you do is you write 3 pages. I don't know if there's magic in 3 pages, but that's just what I think this idea is. And you just write whatever comes to your head. It's not eloquent. There doesn't need to be punctuation. There doesn't need to be anything. It's just getting your thoughts out and getting them on paper. And I've never exactly done it, and I've definitely been held up by the idea of 3 pages, but I have done it on occasion where I've just written until I didn't have anything else to write.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something so helpful about setting that time aside because I think we don't often set aside time for ourselves, maybe especially as women, to think about ourselves and to think about how we're feeling about things or what we're going through or what we're processing or what our gifts are or where we want to go. And by kind of building that little process, I even have an app. I don't remember. Let me see if I can find the name of it. There's a website where you can start writing. Yeah, I don't have it. And it like opens a web page with a cursor that's blank and you set the time. And so I usually just set it
That's
for five
intimidating.
minutes. Oh, it's totally intimidating. It gets
Just
worse.
blank page syndrome.
It gets so much worse. And every writer that I've told this to thinks I'm insane, but I love it. So it's a blank page with a timer for 5 minutes. And once you start typing, it starts going. Here's the thing. When you stop typing, the letters start fading. And if you stop typing for too long, it all disappears.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
so this sounds completely insane, but I love it because it forces me to keep thinking about what I'm thinking instead of dallying off into other thoughts or thinking about what I'm
It
having for
makes
dinner.
you keep going, right?
It just
Yeah.
makes me keep going because I have to. And 5 minutes has never seemed so long as when you're trying to not have the words deleted, especially if you know you have a few good sentences in there or a good couple good realizations. But that is just actually as terrifying as it sounds. There's maybe one person listening who's like, yes, that's for me. Everybody else is like, you are insane.
You're cracking me
I
up.
think it's called Scribbler or something. Anyway, you can probably Google it. I'll include a link in the show notes, but it's oddly been a strange thing. It has helped me to
Well, I
journal.
think any way you need to process, because again, we're all different personalities, we're all wired different, and sometimes 3 pages is important because the first page may just be the throwaway. You're just getting stuff out of your head to start getting to the meat, right? So I get why maybe pushing it to that certain page number or a certain amount of time, like because you're just forcing yourself to be there and be present. And that's what with my journal too. It's like doesn't take long. It could be that 5 minutes, but you're focused on certain things, on writing down your goals, on making your priorities, on gratitude, on certain maybe a word or a verse you're going to like live by that week, or you're focused to look at like your wins or your lessons from the workout or the meet or the situation. So I think it's that intentionality, right? And you're big into morning routines and creating that intentional kind of space at the beginning. So I'm curious with you, is it a certain amount of time to be intentional that helps you kind of get the ball moving and like keep focused on your goals, or what do you think like sets you up best for success in that realm?
I think for me, I do have to be intentional. And honestly, I need the little 5 minute timer. Sometimes I just need something to make me push through the hard start. You know,
Hmm.
we all have things that we want to pursue, but it just feels really hard to get that ball rolling. And I just sometimes need some sort of external source to help me get going. Sometimes that's a carrot and sometimes that's a stick. So sometimes it's my words disappearing. Sometimes it's putting on a playlist that really hypes me up and gets me going and gets me focused. But, you know, and I've learned that I need to know the difference between the two and I need to know what I need in different situations and that sometimes I do need that stick and sometimes I need that carrot. I feel like in this season of my life, I have forgotten how important music is to me. I've always loved music.
Mm.
I've always wanted to be a musician. Like growing up, I wanted to be the next Amy Grant. I don't sing. I don't have musical skill. I hack
You have a
away
guitar
at
in the background.
I do, and I hack away at it, but I will not, nobody's going to hear me play that except my family. But I love music. And for some reason in this season, I listen to a lot of words. I listen to podcasts, I listen to teachings or YouTube videos. And every now and then, well, my son actually makes a monthly like worship playlist for our family. And so he sends it out at the beginning of the month. And every beginning of the month, I start listening to it and I'm just so inspired and invigorated. I'm like, yes, this really inspires me to work towards, you know, whatever I feel like God is calling me to in that season. And then I get kind of caught up in learning about things or listening to podcasts and I forget just the role that music plays for me. And I that's something that I've tried to pay more attention to lately, something that I've written down in my own personal inventory that in a way that nothing else can, music inspires me and helps me move towards my goals.
Well, I love that. And I think it's almost the difference between the knowledge and the feeling, right? The heart. I've been the same way, like, and maybe it's just the age or the station of life. And like, I'm always teaching and reading and learning and trying to help people out. But when my kids turn the music on, it's like, oh, it's like I remember that,
Yeah.
it lets you relax and unwind a little bit and be present in a different way. And it's like you let your mind relax and you let your heart feel again a little bit, because I feel like sometimes I'm disassociated from my feelings in this very like knowledge based area of life right now. And so it's good to disconnect from that and let our heart just like lead the way.
That's so true. I think I heard an artist named Bethany Dillon, and I don't know if she was quoting somebody or if these are her own words, but she said, music reminds us of a place we've never been. And
Ooh.
I loved that because it's so true. And it does remind me also of places I've been. I remember when I was maybe 13, Amy Grant had an album called Lead Me On that came out sometime around then. And we went on a vacation to Big Bend. It's a state park in Texas. And the entire week long vacation, that is the album that I listened to on repeat. Only that album. I listened to every nuance, every instrument. I read the lyric book. That is what I listen to. And so when that album comes on now, I am in Big Bend. I am on that vacation. I'm
Yep.
13 years old again. And there is something about music that does that for us, whether it's music that hypes
Hmm.
us up for a workout or music that helps us when we write. When I was writing my book, I listened to Bach Cello Suites by Yo Yo Ma.
Hmm.
And whenever that comes on now, I hear it and I'm like, it's almost like Pavlov's dog. And I'm like, I need to start typing. I need to start writing
Well, you've
because it's
probably
what I
heard
listen
about
to.
those elderly people too who are like almost catatonic, but then when like music from their childhood would come on, they would get up and start dancing. And they would come to life in this different way. Like music has a way of getting to, yeah, that deep dark place, bringing up those memories, making you come alive in a different way. That's super cool.
Hmm.
Super cool.
And I just love knowing these things about ourselves. And honestly, I probably need to make a playlist for myself about the songs that really get me motivated in different ways. Let me just press in on that one more bit. I'm curious, do you have a song that you love to play when you need to work on something? Whether it's working out, whether it's working, whatever it might be. Do you have a go-to?
I've had different playlists that I've made for like working out and for different seasons, but like again, I've kind of gotten out of that in the last year or so, just being home and trying to like be with the kids and working. And I've noticed that like I almost have to have it quiet while I'm writing emails and things like that because I just get distracted and I'll just like kind of slowly fade over here and not be focused on what I need to do. So I've actually had a lot more quiet going on in those moments, but It was really funny. We were playing Chicago of all things in the car last night on our way home from dinner. We went out 'cause it's spring breaks. We went out with the family and we were listening to Chicago. And I loved that my kids knew the words to the song. We were laughing so hard. We're like, our kids are going to be 80s children, even though it's like 2025. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I love so much. And I love that my kids are discovering like who they like and what they're really into. Like one of my daughters likes Forrest Frank a lot. And so we've been listening to
Yes.
that. And well, we just went to Toby Mac the other night and Crowder was there. And
Oh,
that was
fun.
really fun. Took all the kids to that. So I mean, I love so much different stuff, but lyrics are important, but that yeah, how it catches your soul is that really
Hmm.
special thing, like you said.
Hmm.
So Kat, do you have a goal of this in this season of your life? And like what is it taking for you to push toward that goal in this time?
Yeah. So a current goal of mine is to play pickleball, as I've mentioned occasionally, and I really want to reach a level like there's different number levels in pickleball, and one of them is to be a 4.5. And I'm a 4.3. I think it's a little generous on that, but we'll just go with it. I like the number. And it's been a struggle because even though it sounds like a small difference, it's really kind of a big one. And I think a few things that I've had to learn about myself in this process of trying to reach this goal is that so much of me reaching this goal isn't about my skill necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about my confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have sadly learned that I am very not confident in my own abilities. In a sense, I am, like to a degree, I am. But I have been playing a lot with people who you do mixed doubles a lot in pickleball. And so I'll play with a friend of mine who is very good, and then and a girl, and then two guys. And so technically, I'm probably going to be the weaker player. If the girl is better than me, and then we're playing with two guys, probably I'm going to be the weaker player. And I feel like over the past few months, I've grown accustomed to losing. And it's,
Oh.
in one sense, I've gotten better because I'm learning, higher level skills and that sort of thing. But in another sense, I just walk onto the court sort of assuming that I'm going to lose because
Mm-hmm.
that's happened a lot. I don't always lose, but, I do. And I've learned that believing in myself is something that I need to be better at. I've learned that I don't do that very well. I can theoretically believe in myself and say, oh, yeah, I can do that. But then when it gets down to the really hard part, I question myself. So that's definitely something I've identified that I want to work on and that I need to be better at. And at the same time, I feel like I've learned that I'm willing to do that. Like I'm learning that I'm willing to walk into failure, quote unquote, to push through that so I can come out the other side. So there's a plus and a minus to both. I think anytime you're pursuing a goal, it's never a straight line. There's always, you hit a peak and then a valley and then another
Mm-hmm.
peak and then another valley. So it's been helpful for me, though, to journal about that process and to recognize how much of me reaching this goal is going to be mental and just learning to believe in myself. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Like, yeah, yeah, and that's kind of like the Olympics. Like when you look at the epitome of like all the sports, and it's like everybody has this amazing skill level when you're at the top, but it's like who stays on up here
Yeah.
can make all the difference, right? Between silver and gold, or winning and losing in that sense. So it
Mhm.
is funny how these little shifts that you make in your brain can make huge differences on the court or in the
Mhm.
pool. Yeah, for sure. I love that.
What about you? What's a goal that you've been working towards, and what's something that you've learned about yourself?
It was really neat that we were talking to Crystal because, yeah, I mean, you know me, and I'm homeschooling the kids and trying to work out of the house, and that's been hard in different ways. One, just the mom stuff, just being a mom and always having mom guilt that you're never doing the right things. Like that's always there. But I've been struggling a lot because I am very highly motivated and tend to be an overachiever and a perfectionist and all of these things. And I have made my kids a priority and my business is taking a back seat. And that's really hard for me because my MO is like, I can see this thing that I can do really well and I can grow it and I can do all these amazing things with it, but it's not my priority. And I'm having to put it to the side. And that is while I know it's the right thing that I need to be doing in this season, it's really, really hard for me. And so I've been recognizing that lately, that I've see that that's why I get so angry sometimes, or I get really frustrated with the kids because I'm not here doing this thing like on my computer or reaching out or doing marketing or whatever it is, creating a course, that I should be doing these things, but yet I've chosen to put that on the back burner so that I can prioritize my children and being fully present with them at this season of our lives. And that's a big struggle for me, because when I was an athlete, I could be all in. It was just me and I was there and I could do that, like full time. And so learning those boundaries and hearing Crystal say it's okay, like it's going to be different every season and every day, even day to day, like you may win at this and fail at this, but like failure is part of it. Or you may see that, man, my house looks really good, but I wasn't fully present here today. Or I was a great mom today, but I did not get that email written, And so that was just, again, reassuring that I'm not the only one going through this stuff, that other people are there too, and she's so wise and she has been through and learned so much. Like hearing that from someone of that magnitude is just really confirming to me that, like, okay, I can take a deep breath. Like, this is okay right now. Like, it's okay to be frustrated. And it's okay to fail sometimes. But to recognize that and to understand what my priorities, that I'm actually walking through and making the right things the priorities in this season. And so it's okay to have the frustration, but it is still like not my top priority. So kind of learning to balance that a little bit. But then, okay, well, just because it's not my top priority doesn't mean I can just put it to the wayside and ignore it completely. You know what I mean? I still need to work on it and make intentional time for it. So again, being very intentional with what I'm doing and what my goals for each day are. Like I'm trying to go week by week right now and really kind of mapping out, okay, what is a kid heavy day where we have a lot of activities for them that need to be done? What is a work heavy day where they're going to have to kind of learn to have some alone time and just keep themselves busy while mommy is, doing her thing. So that's something I'm working on right now that's been really good. And it was just clarifying hearing Crystal talk about that, in our last episode. Yeah. How about you? Like, are you in a season like that, or what is your walk right now like?
Well, I totally relate to that. And I think that's something that everybody listening to can relate to, because whenever we start to set even one goal, then we might think about another area. And once we even think about that area, then we want to be awesome at that area. And I think that's such a tendency for all of us to say, I'm going to, be a great mom today, which is also hard because it is such an subjective thing rather than an
Right.
objective thing that we can track. But, being able to say that in this season, I'm focusing on X and I'm still keeping Y going, but I'm not focusing on it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
You want, especially if we are goal oriented people, we want to go all in on all the things, but we just can't. And that could even be part of, this process of discovering us, of keeping a personal inventory where we write down and say, in this season, I am focusing on
Right.
X.
Right.
And Y is not my priority, but I will do X, Y, and Z to keep going. And just reminding ourselves of what our priority is so that, I think the enemy wants to make us feel guilty. He wants us to
Mm-hmm.
make us do too much and wear ourselves out and feel like we're failures. Just the other day, I was just not having a great day and I was sitting on this little couch behind me and I just thought, wow, I'm really lame at everything. And, a couple days later, I recognize that I'm not, but we all have those moments in those days when we think, there is nothing that I could do that's right. This is terrible, because we want to do everything so well that anything less
Mm-hmm.
than is so incredibly discouraging. So it's really good to hear you say, in this season, I'm focusing on this, and it's a struggle because I also want to focus on this, but I can't. And I think it's a skill we can all exercise.
Well, and I think it was important for me to realize why I was getting so frustrated with my kids. It had nothing to do with my kids. It was because I was trying to be this thing in this aspect, and that was not where my focus should have been. And so understanding that there are days or there are times where that does need to be my focus, but I also make that very clear to my children when that time is. And they're actually they've been really good about it because we try to plan it out. And again, like be intentional on setting up the day or the week of like, I have a cool little sign on my window of my study, a new study we've set up here that says like, session in progress. And they know like they can't even knock on the door unless it's like 911 emergency. There will be no knocking on the door, staring in the window at me. But if it says welcome, come on in, they're allowed to come on in and say hi. So it's recognizing those things in us too, because like you said, we'll try to do it all perfectly and we'll burn ourselves out, but understanding certain priorities, and also like this might be why I'm so angry in this other aspect of my life, which has nothing to do with that aspect. It's coming from over here, but like learning how to connect those dots. And so, okay, we need to figure out how to smooth the sails a little bit so that I'm not so flustered or so angry all the time or so burnout all the time and just feeling awful about everything, because we're not lame at everything. We have to
Yeah.
have to be intentional.
I heard a quote once that said, "We're always going to disappoint someone. We just need to disappoint the right people." And
I like
I think
that.
that's actually so freeing to think about,
Hmm.
because I'm going to disappoint somebody. Somebody's not going to like something that I'm doing, but I need to know, I need to make that decision. Who am I going to disappoint? Or you can obviously flip that around. Who am I going to prioritize?
Hmm.
And I think it's also helpful to recognize, what season of life am I in? Well, I'm about to be in a very different season of life than you're in. And so my time and my opportunities to focus on things are going to be way different than what yours are in your season. And I was where you are a few years
Hmm.
ago, and other people I know were in the season that I'm at. And when we can recognize that and kind of zoom out that we have seasons and it's different for everybody in different seasons, then it can also be freeing to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm not doing. There will be a season for that later on, but this isn't it.
Well, I remember the first time I heard about seasons was such a gift because I had two 2 year olds and a newborn. And I remember spending 50% of our time in the half bath downstairs because I had two kids learning how to potty train. So I'm like nursing my baby while wiping a rear end with my other hand. I was like, this can't be sanitary. Is this my life now? What have I done? Like, I just was so overwhelmed. Like, this is going to be the rest of my life. Like, what have I chosen? And then I heard somebody talk about these seasons, like it won't always be like that. And I was like, really? It won't? Like, for some reason, had no concept that this was not the rest of my life. So understanding that, yes, it only lasts a little while and it will be over. And then 10 years down the road, you're like, man, if all I had to do was wipe a kid's rear end and feed somebody, things would be a lot easier. So, yeah, perspective is a gift
It
for
is
sure.
such a gift. And I've also found that not only is it important to know our season, but then also our situation because, when my kids were little, we don't have family nearby. And so I had the same season as another friend who had family in town, but I had a different situation. And so it worked out really well for us that my husband worked from home. So it allowed me to leave while the kids were napping and gave me some flexibility. And people would say, "Oh, it's so great for you that your husband works from home." And I'm like, "It totally is." And then I'd say, "It's great for you that you have family in town that can watch your kids for a date night."
Hmm.
We might all be in the same season, but we have different situations. And so sometimes we can look at other people and think, well, they're in the same season that I am and they can do it. Why can't I do this? Well, and
Hmm.
that's what I think we need to look at our situation and give ourselves some grace because nobody is in the exact same situation in the exact same
Right.
season. So,
Well,
the,
and it's how we look at those situations too, right? Like I was just, of course, comparing myself to another mom who always has activities going on for her kids. They're always going on vacations. They're always doing this. And like, we can't do that in this season of our life. We can't take a bunch of vacations. We can't always be doing all the things. And sometimes I get frustrated by that because I want to give my kids all the things, right? But then I can look at the good side of, okay, well, we can't do that, but like, man, I get to be right here present with them and we can still go hang out and like, play volleyball in the park, or we can go, my son loves to just take tree branches and march around with them and hit stuff, with them. And like, it's okay to be simple and to just live in that moment and fully embrace where you are and be grateful for that, right? Even though it maybe isn't what somebody else has or what they're doing, it doesn't mean this isn't great too in its own right. You know what I mean?
So good. And I think this whole discussion that we've had with our episode with Crystal and then talking about it today, just so encourage everybody listening, take some time, grab Crystal's journal, 100 Days to Discovering the Gift of You, and work through it. Simple questions, easy to do. It's actually really fun to work through. And just taking that time, because we so often, like I said, we don't take the time to think about ourselves as much as we need to in a productive way. We might think about ourselves and be anxious and think about ourselves and worry and think about ourselves and be hard on ourselves. But we need to take more time to think about how God made us, who we are in Him, so that our anchor is in a good spot, so that as we set goals and pursue goals, they're based on a really solid foundation.
Spot on.
All right. So that's my challenge for everybody listening. Grab Crystal's journal, take some personality tests, start your own personal inventory note in your notes app, and start learning about yourself. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today on this episode of the Hello Goals podcast. And I hope that you will reach your goals so that you can be our next guest on the next episode of the Hello Goals podcast.